And we are back. This is Dad School Podcast. I am Josh,
I'm Jimmy.
and we have a couple things to talk about today. Because if we didn't,
Probably
it'd be a
homeschool.
terrible podcast.
Yeah.
Homeschool, yes. Homeschool related. So I'm going to set the scenario up for you, Jimmy. I'm not saying this is how it always happens, but I'm just thinking about a hypothetical. Okay. Maybe a wife or a female member of the household uh, wants to homeschool, but the male member or dad, as we call them, does not see eye to eye, does not know if that's the right way, has been maybe brought up a different way and thought that's how their kids are going to go. I kind of wanted to talk about that today because that's literally what happened to my family. I wanted to start off with your family and see how you guys came to the decision to homeschool. Why?
Yeah, man. I think it's great that we're starting off with that question this morning, as we've been in the homeschool community for a long time. 10, maybe, no. Yeah, I mean, like 8 or 9 years. Yeah, long time. We've been doing it for a while. And as I've gotten to meet different families and different dads in particular over the years, that is a scenario and a story that I've heard so many times, where it's one of the two, and it's most often the dad. Is just kind of, I don't think we should, but I guess if you're really going to push it, then you can just kind of drag me along. But it's going to be your thing, and you do the homeschool. If you want to do it, you can own it. And there's a handful of times that the dads are just kind of along for the ride. Um, so this conversation for you dads, this is for you guys, getting plugged in, getting to be a part of this. This is for you guys. Um, for us, the genesis of our decision process of, looking at homeschool as an option started with, we were trying to determine how we could actually have time together as a family. Back whenever we were having to figure out, okay, school's coming up within the next year or two, we got to determine where we're going to go, what we're going to do. We were living in Colorado at the time, and I was very busy in a retail management career that takes lots of hours, crazy weird hours when you're the place you're managing is open from 5 in the morning till 11 at night. That's a lot of hours, a big range of time to have to cover. And then my wife works nights a lot of times. She's a therapist, and seeing clients. And most often, clients want to see their therapist when they're done with work. It's oftentimes that's the time frame. Like if a therapist really wants to have a good solid schedule full of clients, they see people in the evening. So she works a lot of evenings. I worked a lot of days. So we were already kind of opposite schedules. As it turned out, if we were going to do public school or even a private school, but just something that's on a regular Monday through Friday during the school day hours, and then my wife would go to work in the evening, she would be home when our kids were at school. And then as soon as they were getting home from school, she'd be going off to work and would never actually get to see their kids. So that was actually probably one of the biggest components of the conversation for us. And
So
even
let me stop you right there.
myself, yeah, yeah.
Did you guys go, like, when you guys got married and you're talking and like we're gonna have kids eventually? Did you
Hmm.
discuss this? Like, was this a topic you brought up, saying, "Oh, we're gonna homeschool for sure," or was it more just assumed that you're gonna have your own, the standard cookie cutter out of the box education for whatever? Like, did you guys ever discuss that beforehand?
No, no, and I don't know if she thought about homeschool in particular when we first got married. We were married for about 6 years before we had our first kiddo, and I don't know if we really had that conversation during those first 6 years, and then for the first 4 years of our daughter's life, before we were ready for the school conversation. I don't know that we ever talked about it then either, or
So
if we
you
did, it
both
was
were
just kind
public
of a
schooled.
passing. We both public schooled, and in the back of my
Okay.
head, my thought was, we'll just follow along with
Okay.
what my experience was, what her experience was, because that's what was normal, expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I can relate to all of what you just said.
yeah. But as we got closer, we started trying to figure out, okay, getting to where my wife gets to have time with the kids was a big one. But then we had also, the other biggest factor for us is our daughter had gotten diagnosed with food allergies. And at the time, she had peanut, egg, and dairy. And we were just kind of swimming in, what does this mean? How do we handle this? This is scary. Being around the stuff is not a good scenario. And we had heard some pretty unfortunate stories of some different kids going to school and, something happens and they get sick, hospital, all that sort of thing. So that factored in at the beginning of our exploration as well. Like, well, we can manage it a whole lot easier at home. So that definitely led to me opting in and buying in a lot easier early on too.
Did you have any opposition to the idea? Who first proposed the idea? Was it your wife?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. She brought it up first.
And was it in the
And
context of I could do this, or was it in the context of Jimmy, you're going to do all this?
oh no, no. It was a we are going to do this. Cuz to be honest, we try to tackle everything as close to like going forward as team members as possible. And that
Now,
sounds cheesy to say, but we
now is
do.
that like we can do this? Like we can cut the grass, and then it ends. You look around, and it's just you cutting the grass, or is it like
Oh
we can
no,
do
no.
this, and it's going to be we can do this?
Yeah, cutting the grass, that one's already predetermined. We know how that one goes down. Yeah. Um no, yeah, we actually we looked at it and we're like, you know what? My wife, like, you are phenomenal at English and literature and spelling, handwriting, and all these kinds of things. Like, awesome. I'm math and science and history, and so we already kind of looked at it. We're like, you know what? We each got our own kind of buckets that we fall into. Things that either we find interesting, or we have maybe higher than average or at least average skill and ability in certain areas. And it's just kind of, we just tag team it. And she tackles the things that she's the best at, and I tackle the things that I'm the best at. And we just kind of pass it back and forth.
Okay, let me pause your story there, and let me get my story out there, and then we can proceed because I have an angle I'm trying to go with this.
Yeah.
Our journey started very the same. We both went to public school. We both thought our kids would go through public school. Being married 6 to 7 years before our first child, we always assumed our kid would go to public school. And in fact, we had a family member and a couple of close friends that homeschooled their kids, and we would. I'm not going to say snicker behind their back or say things, but we didn't agree with that decision, you know?
Mm.
So we were like, why would you do that? Public school is the way to go. And that was just our mentality at the time because we didn't know any better. Our faith journey had a lot to do with that as well for our family. We came from different backgrounds. I was a Methodist, but at the time when we had our first child, I was really leaning toward the atheist side of the spectrum. I was walking away from God completely. My wife grew up in the Lutheran background and never really dove deep into faith until about the time we started having kids. Then she got involved with a Baptist group, and my gosh, her world changed for the better, and my world soon changed to the better once I actually started researching and came to faith in Christ. It was amazing. But all that aside, it did have a big impact on our school journey because I remember one day sitting in church. It was one of the times when I wasn't really at all strong on my faith, but I was going along because I just showed up and I was with my wife. I love my wife very much. So I would go and do things with her even if I didn't like to do them. You know, that's what guys do sometimes, right? Just to be around your wife. So going to
Brownie point.
church, yeah, going to church was one of those things for me at that time. And I was sitting in the sanctuary with her, And I look over and she has like tears coming down her face. And she's like, "We're going to homeschool." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, my wife doesn't usually say randomly odd things ever. You know, she's pretty calculating, methodical in most of the things she does. I've never really known her to make an off the cuff decision without thinking about it. So her telling me we need to homeschool, and I could be remembering this dramatically some way, but I remember she had tears in her eyes. I remember her looking at me and telling we need to homeschool, and I was like, all right. And me personally at the time, I knew my wife had 8 to 9 years as a high school math teacher. That was under her belt. She was in a school system doing that. And we've played with the idea. I think at the time, she was taking a break from that to pursue a little bit of a business endeavor that she came up with. And she was very successful with that and doing really well. And we had our firstborn in a daycare facility during the day, and he just kind of hung out there. It was like half a mile from home, not even very far from our house, but he just went there so she can have time to work at home, which was fine. I had no problem with that. We all agreed to it, and there was no problems. And I at the time worked in the office, so I was driving all the way downtown. Oops. Alarm clock went off. That was great. I was running all the way downtown, working pretty long hours during the day and stuck in traffic. So I wasn't home very much either. And her saying this, that she wanted to do this, it was never implied, and she knows me and she'll laugh at this. It was never implied that I'd be teaching our kids because I wasn't the best student growing up. I have lacking gaps in my education, and that's due to my own laziness than anything else. No one, the public school system, I can probably say they failed me, whatever. But in all honesty, it was me. I goofed up. I should have been a better student. So, with all that being said, we decided to homeschool. And that's when we led into doing our conventions because we didn't know what we were doing yet. So we went to our convention, our very first Teaching Diligent convention down in Tennessee, Memphis at the time. Yeah. So my thought at the time was, hey, I can't think of anybody more qualified to teach than my wife in this setting. Now, that's not going to help some people out there because they're like, oh, well, my wife wasn't a math teacher. So we're definitely not qualified. And that's why I wanted to stop and say all this and then bring it back to you, Jimmy, because are either of you, your wife or you, are you certified teaching educators?
Absolutely not. Not even close.
Oh my, Jimmy, how do you do it?
So here's how qualified I am. I do have a college degree. My college degree is in recreation. So if that tells you like how what I bring to the table as far as being an educator,
so recess was awesome in your homeschool. You're saying
recess was the best. It still is all the time. Yeah, though that was absolutely one of our biggest questions, concerns. Is one of my like, I don't think we can handle this. What are we thinking about at the very first few weeks of trying to sift through? Is this even an option? Is it something we can handle? Because no, neither of us come from a education background at all.
Okay, so what kind of and I learned this myself as we went through this journey together. My wife and I, not you and I. That'd be weird. What resources, like when you are doing homeschool, like is it just that's it? You decide to homeschool and now your kids sit in front of you and you gotta make up stuff to teach them? But how does this work? What do you do? Not trying to go step by step to give people instructions, just like an overview of killing the worry of having to actually teach people.
It was a lot of interneting and researching on there of what even options are, because we had no idea. There's not like one great resource, or maybe there's more now, but we didn't feel like there's one great resource where you just, here's a box, you open it, and then it's all put together for you. But then that actually appealed to us, that it turned into, it's kind of like a buffet where we know our kid really likes to read. And so being able to build out everything in a way that suits her, what she really gets into, like, it was great. But we ended up falling into a co-op I don't remember if it was just we knew someone that was a part of it, or if we found them online. I don't
So
remember
what's
how
a
we
co-op to people who might not know what that term is or have a
co-op.
misinformation on what it is?
Yeah, co-op is where we homeschool out of our home. We do most of our stuff is here in the house, but once a week we get together with other families. We our co-op we meet at a church, so we rent the facility from them for a day, 1 day a week. But the co-op that we're a part of in particular actually has a set curriculum, which was actually what for me really attracted me, and I think both of us as well. But it has a set curriculum that, we'll give you this to take home, and this is what you're going to work on during the week. And then when you come to co-op, all of the kids are already studying the same thing, doing the same memory work, studying the same category of science or whatever you're doing at home. You're doing the same thing, so that when we gather together as a week, you're getting that classroom setting. It's other parents that are the tutor or the lead person in that classroom with other kids, and other parents are all there. It's all hands on. Everyone's in there working together. But they get time to play with their friends. They get, the lunch break in the middle of the day, and they can go play outside. And it's like a regular school day. It feels like what you would think of public school, but it's families and it's parents, and we're all involved together.
So it's
And
not a
we
daycare you
love
drop your kid off at.
exactly. No, it's very much like you got to be plugged in, and
Okay.
it's not a drop and run scenario.
Okay. And I want
But
to keep
for
this
me,
at
it was
a
yeah,
what and a why conversation, not a how. So I'm like skirting the edge of how, but I think there's many components to this, like the curriculum, the co-ops, and I think it's important people know that there's resources out there to help you, right? Like
yeah,
you just don't, like you said, it's not internet. I'm a YouTube how to homeschool like that. Actually, probably would come up with some great sites, like Blessed Homeschool Mom and Techie Homeschool Mom. Just plugging those guys in. But if you were to be interested in homeschooling and have no idea how you're going to do it, there are resources, there are conventions to go to, people to reach out, communities out there in all walks of life, both Christian and non-Christian. There's both sides to that coin as well. People want to homeschool who don't necessarily value the biblical worldview. Worldview. That's a hard word for me to say today. Um, but I just want to make sure that's out there. People understand that.
yeah, absolutely. And so that was what absolutely drew us in, was having something that matched our worldview. The one that we jumped into is very it's classically based and Christian based, and it was full of families that we saw that they were succeeding. It was working for them. We got to go and visit one week just to see what it looked like. And they're very open to just come check us out and see what you think. It's not like you're having to blindly walk into like a cult or something like that, which that's in the back of your head. Like, what am I walking into? What are these people all about? And you have so many questions at the beginning, and it's okay to ask those questions. Like, don't be afraid of all of the flood of thoughts that are flying into your head. Like, well, how am I going to handle this? What am I going to do about making sure that they don't come out like a moron? Like it's okay to have those fears. And that's why we ended up loving being part of a community, because there were other people we could walk through and struggle through all those questions, and that just clicked for us. That made sense for us. But it's not absolutely not mandatory to do it that way, because you
Yeah.
guys aren't part of co-op, right?
No. Well, we do go to a co-op, but it's not the driving force for our curriculum or how we teach.
Right.
I know, and that's not saying it weirdly. For you guys chose that because you're all like-minded in that curriculum. Ours is, like you said, a buffet table, and it's whatever. But there is an offering of, I don't know, it's called services, but each, in our co-op, each of the moms, it's not mandatory, I don't think. I mean, I could be completely wrong in most things I say in life, but um, they had the opportunity to teach a class, like an hour or so block in this co-op that we attend. And my wife did not know Latin. She took, I believe, 2 years of Spanish in high school, public school. But when she signed up for this co-op, she signed up and she decided she was going to teach Latin. She's never taught Latin before, didn't know Latin. She knew how to spell it and pronounce it, but she didn't know Latin. That's it. So she got a book and she learned with the kids. And every single week there's a teacher lesson and there's a kids lesson, and she goes through it and she understands it, watches a video with the lesson, and teaches the kids. And I find that that's the same for most of the topics. You're not an expert. I'm listening to my 13-year-old right now go through science and chemistry. I think it's chemistry. I mean, it has chemicals involved in the periodic table. And I'm remembering that I love science. I was bad at science, but I loved science. It was a math thing for me and a memorization thing for me and a laziness thing. Uh, but listening to my son go through it, I'm like, this is really cool because not only do I get to experience this again and listen to the experiences, I'm getting coffee from work breaks or whatnot, because I work at home right now full time. So I'm able to at least be present around my kids, which is another thing I want to talk about. But finishing this thought, we're not the experts. We're not like PhDs in science, and we're teaching our son science. You know, there's a book, we follow the curriculum, and we answer questions with him. If we don't know the answer, which is usually in the textbook, and our answer to him on when he has a question is usually, "Did you read your lesson?" You know, because it tells you right there. And as adults, we understand the power of reading now. But as a
Yes.
kid growing up, you really didn't. I think it's if any dad is out there or any mom who's considering this and you're listening to us, I think it's important to really get a takeaway from this. You don't have to be an expert to homeschool. You have to
Mhm.
be your intentions should be the best education for your kid. And another reason why it might be important to homeschool for you would be the tailored learning experience you can provide for your kid. Because we know our children. Hopefully, you know your children, and you know if they learn a certain way or a certain other way. And if you don't see them learning correctly, and I'm going to say correctly is a bad term because everyone learns differently, right? But you might have some people who need more hands-on learning. You might have people who need more of a side by side with somebody helping them to learn something. You know, some people are really independent learners. They can just get a book, read it, and learn it, and they have that. Maybe testing is not their strong suit. All these things that, if you're not careful, the public school system done improperly can really destroy your kids' like love of learning for the future. So that was another uh, benefit that we found in homeschooling our kids is we can tailor their education to their needs and their learning styles.
Yeah, and we don't have to work towards the test. Um,
Exactly.
like, I mean, I think growing up in Missouri, I think it's called something different now, but it was the MMAT was the big test that we
The
had to
map.
do. Announce the map test. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was certain years of your time through elementary school was the MMAT year, and you had to. They would do it towards the end of the year, but you spent so much of your class time
Hmm.
around strategizing how to do well on the test and not so much on the actual like content of the lessons you're doing. And this is a regular conversation that I think happens a lot in the homeschool community, is that we're not having to teach towards the test, and it's just let's just teach towards our child's enrichment, and like you're saying, like tailor it to what is most interesting to them, find a source that works for your brain as the parent. And if you pick this math curriculum this year or this science curriculum this year, you're not tied to that for the remainder of your child's education. You can halfway through the year or next year pick up a different curriculum and find one that starts for you. We had the experience at the very, very beginning. Someone emphatically told us you have to do Singapore math. Uh, and I don't know if you're familiar with Singapore math,
I've
but
heard that term, Singapore math.
yeah,
Yes.
it was my experience with it. It was we only did it for 1 year, and it was the very on early math, but it was like the new math, and maybe I had that wrong view of it, but it was all of the theoretical type stuff that they're doing in school now, where you're breaking things apart. And I'm like, no, just carry the one. Like, just carry the one. That's all you got to do. And they're like, no, you got to diagram all these things out. And oh my goodness, it hurt our brains. And then we got into something else the next year, And the tears went away for our child, and I think both of us parents. It clicked. We found a curriculum that was the type of math that we learned, and lo and behold, oh wow, she's thriving in math. Like, who'd have thunk
Mm-hmm.
it? So having that freedom and flexibility, like you get to own it in a way that your child best. If something is clicking for them, and we want to try to figure out how we can manage it to not just be it's clicking, but it's thriving. Not just thrive, but thrive. That whole mentality, and you get to mold it exactly how you want it. And that's great.
Buffet. I like that term.
Buffet,
Buffet.
buffet,
Because who doesn't
and
like a
that's
good
what these.
buffet, right?
Oh, I love buffet. Yeah, but that's what these conferences are like. It's literally you're walking up and down the aisle, and I'll take some of that and some of
Yeah,
that. They're
definitely.
great. They're awesome. Yeah.
So we kind of touched on this early on. At least your story started with this. Uh, Teaching your kids your own family values. Because if you really stop to think about contact time with your children, um, a typical school day, if I'm remembering my childhood correctly, you get up early and you hit the bus like at 7:30, maybe for like middle school, maybe elementary. I can't remember what time it was. Maybe 6:30. But you leave the house at that point, and you are at school until about 3:30 in the afternoon. Right. So all those hours you're at school. Okay. And as a parent, for me now, thinking back, I understand that there's many different points of view and opinions in this world, and teachers at a public school. My wife used to be one of them, so I know that there are good teachers out there. I'm not saying there's not, but there's also people who have other ideas of what's right and wrong, and it might not be the same ideas that I want my kids to be thinking about at this age. And I know I don't want to step on too many taboo topics, though I would love to, but I want to keep this a civil conversation for all. But some people have agendas that they push, and you could spin that however you want to spin it. But in the end of the day, my kid is not your follower. My kid is a follower of Christ and my household. That's how my kid is going to be raised. So, with all that being said, looking back at contact time and who I want raising my kid, it definitely is like checkmarking the homeschool category, because it's like now you're home with me all day, and you can learn what I want you to learn. Now we have the naysayers in the group who might be like, "That sounds very cultish. You're just going to teach your kid all of certain things and not teach them everything, right?" Probably. I'll teach them what I think they need to learn. Yes, that's the
Yeah.
point. That is
Right.
the whole point. Now, do you have bad apples out there that ruin this whole scenario for everybody? Absolutely. You have nut jobs out there who just teach your kids, how to strip down an AR-14 or whatever, and they're doing that, and that's what their life and home is, and that's not what the typical homeschool environment is. It's not holding your Bible and singing all day long either, although that wouldn't be terrible, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's teaching how you should act in society, because like you take your kids out shopping during the middle of the day, right? And you get
Mhm.
those looks from people like, shouldn't your kids be in school? It's like, they are.
Oh yeah. Oh, we get that all the time. Or my favorite question is when you're going through somewhere, it's always the checkout person.
Yes,
They
it's always a
always they
checkout
always
person.
ask, but they always ask like, "Well, what grade are you in?" And our kids just look up and just go, "I
uh
don't know."
that's my
We do
expression. The
grades.
kids look at me because they know what grade they're in, but they look at me because they know I'm confused about this topic, and they're like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
Dad, what grade we in?" I'm like, "Oh, I think she might be in like the grade."
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. No, that's a fun one. But it's true. Kids are going to they're going to pick up a worldview. Everyone comes out in life with a worldview. I can either be part of that formation, or I can let someone else be part of that formation. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And so you get that criticism. Oh, you guys are, yeah, like you're saying, you're being cultish, and you're just forcing something down their throat. Like, no, if I'm not teaching them, shaping them, providing them with an environment that I find conducive to creating the little human that I would like them to be. Someone else is going to do that, and they're going to use their worldview, and they're going to put the same effort and energy in that I'm doing. Um, and that's absolutely something that you got to build into your calculus of, am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And who's going to be spending time with them? And yeah, I mean, that's very important, but it's my contention that parents should be involved. Parents should be very involved in their children's life. They will be adults and they will go on their own someday. That's absolutely, like, we're not hanging on to them forever. They will be, pushed out of the nest, and okay, it's time for you to thrive. But it's my job to make sure that they're capable of thriving. So that's what we're going to spend these 18, 19, whatever years. That's our focus. That's our intention.
Exactly. So, what about some of the other? I'm not gonna say arguments, but maybe arguments is a good word for this. Arguments against homeschool, um, like the typical extracurricular activities. What if I had a certain experience growing up? I attended events. I did a lot of things in school. I was active. I did activities. So my kids gonna miss out on all of that because they're homeschooled now, right? For example, a science fair,
Hey,
band, drama, sports. What can we say about those things, Jimmy? Are our kids missing out on all those things?
I mean, that's one of the things we, again, love about our co-op, is it lends itself to a few more of those things. We actually had our seventh grade science fair just over the weekend, and we had an amazing judge that got to be one of my judges. It was my responsibility this year to set up the science fair, so I had to put everything together. And kids did great. They all had their big placards filled with all the information, and they had to type up a research paper, and then they had to go in and sit in front of the judges and be grilled with really intense questioning over what they decided to study and present on, and it went really, really well. Um, but if you dig around in your local community, you can find opportunities for getting your kids active in, like in our area, that you can do orchestra band. You can there's some sports leagues. If athletics is something that you still want to have your children involved in, that's one of the big arguments I hear often is, well, I really want my kid to do baseball, and I want them to try and maybe they can go pro, or I don't know. But for whatever reason, that sport, baseball, football, volleyball, that's important to them. There's options that are out in a lot of communities. I'm sure maybe not every community across the country, but you can find ways for your kids to still be involved. There's camps that they can go to in the summer or something like that. We've got areas, things in our area, if pottery, and archery is another one that we know some kids that go and do archery club, and they love it. So you look around, you can find just as many opportunities as the public school system has sitting there.
Yeah, definitely. And as he said, science fair. I participated in the science fair. Oh, 4 or 5 times, I want to say, throughout my elementary to middle school time. I think it was just elementary. Maybe it was like 3 times or 4 times. I love science fair, and I recently was honored enough to be able to participate in Jimmy's co-op science fair as a judge. It was an amazing experience. I'd totally do it again if I'm invited back. The kids did a great
Probably
job.
not.
The kids did a great job. It was amazing to see that age of a kid stand up and give a presentation to a group of adults. That's just a great experience for them to have. Um, Talking about band, my son does piano lessons. He does that on a weekly basis with right now someone what we found in our church who teaches piano, and he's doing great. He did do it at a music store for the past couple of years before that. Uh, So he had that under his belt. He did piano recitals where he'd go in front of a group of people and he'd play a song. So like he has that concert experience as well already. My girls, my twins, they do violin and cello, and they're in the local youth orchestra, and they've done several band orchestra
Yeah.
um, not competitions, but concerts. They've also done like solo ensemble style things. They do a solo piece for a group for judges, and they do a competition, and they get judged on it. And that's like that was hard for me in high school to do, and they're doing it now in fifth, sixth grade. I think they're in sixth grade. I see. What grade you in?
Yeah.
um,
Right. Yeah.
but they're doing that now, and that's like that's amazing to me. They're awesome. Drama. My girls have been in the co-op. They have a ongoing at least twice a year. I think at this point, a fall and a spring play. They're doing. They're gearing up right now. They just got their parts for the Wizard of Oz. They're doing next. It's amazing. They've
Yeah.
done Lion King, the Wizard of Oz. The girls did a special um, drama group that was not part of our co-op, but even a bigger one. They did Oklahoma a while ago. That was an amazing experience. Like the kids are talented. And that was like all a wide range of kids from high school all the way down to elementary. So there are a lot of options out there. People always think, oh, they have to do this in public school. They're not able to do it. Sports. My son has been on the soccer team for a local Catholic church. He got in. There's no rule against people who aren't attending the church playing on the team, in ours at least. And there, we were a friend of one of the people who go there, and he went to kindergarten before we pulled him into homeschool. He went to the kindergarten with these people, and we did like the standard. I'm not gonna say YMCA, but that equivalent of our city's youth soccer growing up. So they were kind of familiar on the team, and when they moved up into that school district, they went to Catholic school. Luke was able to go with them. So it was really, it was nice to have a group that he could still attend sports, and he did games. I'm not sure if he's doing it next year, but he definitely has done it every single year since being in elementary school. So there are tons of activity. My youngest son, he's doing martial arts right now. He has a weekly martial arts class he goes to. Um, and it's a special homeschool like offering from this place because it's like middle of the day when kids are usually in school, but this place has like a little bit of a reduced rate for us, which is nice. You find that a lot of places too. Homeschool rates are
Smart.
awesome.
Smart.
Yeah, so we have a group of kids to do that together. And the whole social aspect we have not just from our co-op and church, but we have kids that we met throughout this whole process of going to these events and doing these extra things that our kids are building friendships with those kids. And the nice thing is they're of like-minded backgrounds and biblical worldviews in most cases, which is something you don't find a lot of times in public school as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, our girls are also, I didn't mention, both of our girls are in dance studio.
Yeah.
And we're super blessed that the dance studio that's here in our area is a Christian organization. So their costumes that they pick are they're beautiful, but they're modest, and they're not the types of dance that they're doing isn't what you would see if you're flipping through MTV and what's dancing on there. And I sound like that uh, hokey dad.
Get off my
And
lawn.
that's but it's true. Like when we go to their recitals, like it's a worshipful experience. Actually, like
Huh.
it's a beautiful thing, and the music that they choose, and the choreography that the girls that all lead each of the classes that they put together. It's a ministry to them, and you can tell like when you go, like it's deliberately we're here to worship Christ in this dance studio, and we're blessed to have that in our community because dance is something that a lot of family with young girls like want to pursue and might be iffy out there. But
Yeah.
yeah, you dig around, you look around, you can find some amazing options out there.
Yeah, we went through several, I think, I want to say years or seasons is the correct word, of gymnastics. My wife did gymnastics most of her childhood, and my girls both jumped into gymnastics, leaped into gymnastics, and then they leaped out of it. uh, but then now they're in silks. So like the silks, you spin, do all sorts of weird flips and stuff like that. It's really terrifying as a dad to watch sometimes,
That's
but it's
crazy.
amazing. It's pretty cool. And speaking of really cool things that they get to do that you think they miss out on, field trips and other activities. Like my kids go on more field trips than I ever did. Like I think they've maxed out. Like my collective school career of field trips, they maxed that out already like a year or so ago. They go to the zoo, the science center, Magic House. They took tour. They did a Krispy Kreme tour once, I think. I didn't even get to do that.
I'm down for that. What? How about when we log out of this? Let's go to our Krispy Kreme.
But they've done different tours to different places, and they my there's a, I don't know if it's through the homeschool co-op or if it's a Facebook group I'm probably gonna mess it all up. But my wife gets random messages from certain people saying, "Hey, a group of us homeschoolers are going up here. We're gonna go see what was it Mark Twain's house or whatever. They're going up there, or there was a ship, a boat, a World War II boat or something that docked up north someplace, and there was a big ceremony. My wife and kids got to go see that. I was jealous. I had to work. I had to stay home and work, but they got to go off
Yeah,
on a field trip and see a World War II boat. I was like, dude,
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
And they with the
That's
flexibility
cool.
to do that, because like in the middle of the day, you can stop what you're doing.
Yes.
Even though my wife would go nuts sometimes with stressing out over schedules, schedule is yours. There, like you said, there's no one holding you to a gun to hit this test mark. Like, do
Mm.
you have some requirements you have to gather? Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. There are some requirements per state you got to be mindful of, but for the most part, it's your school year, and how you
Mhm.
get there is up to you. There's certain requirements for so many hours in a classroom setting, so your house. But you have out of classroom hours you can do as well, and it's go on vacation, like talking about the Grand Canyon or the formation of the Earth. Take a road trip. As a homeschool family, you can do that. Your kid's not pulled out of school because you're always in school,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going back to Nashville this fall every 2 years. It's the American Association of Christian Counselors has their big conference in Nashville, and we went to the one 2 years ago. And so my wife's in all of the sessions and doing her education and everything she needs to do to maintain her license, but also just sharpen herself and everything. So me and the girls like let's go homeschool. Let's go do all
Yeah,
that. So we went to Mammoth Cave and spent a day spelunking in Mammoth Cave because that was like an hour away. And then we went to the Hermitage, which is President Andrew Jackson's home in Nashville. It was just right around the corner. So we went and toured his home in Nashville, his farm, and we did a whole big history and U.S. history, U.S. president like lesson for the whole day. It was awesome. They loved it. Like, and I'm into all that history stuff, so it was like super cool. And you get to do that stuff during the school year when everyone else is in their regular school routine, and you go on trips. There's no one else out there. You got the whole place
yes,
to yourself. Like it's the best.
yeah. And we went to. I took a day off work. That's the other thing. As a homeschool dad who has a job at home that I can do this with my kids sometimes. I might take an afternoon off, step away for a bit, and go to an event with them. I drove to, I think it was Merrimack Caverns we went to, and we went on a tour from Merrimack Caverns for one day, just to day off.
Yeah.
And every other person there was pretty much, I'm going to say older, like of age, retirement maybe, going through. And here's our family bouncing through the caves with kids, and it's like, oh, taking a day off of school today. No, this is school, It's
Yeah.
learn.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Buy a bunch of rocks in the gift store.
Too many. We have too
Too
many
many.
rocks. We have all the rocks.
All the rocks. This one's shiny. So is this one. And this costs
Yeah.
a lot of
You already
money.
have 1,000 shiny ones. You don't need another one.
Oh man. Okay, so time, as that could be an issue for parents, right? The time requirement for homeschooling. So you have two people who have careers, they have jobs, full-time jobs. That could be an issue of who is going to do the homeschooling with the kids. and that's a legit concern that you gotta parent out and be adults about. But it really is rewarding to have all the options that come with homeschooling, whether it's the mom who stays home or the dad, to homeschool. I think it's definitely something worth pursuing and researching at least. If you have questions, research it. Ask people in the community. They're always willing to talk about it.
Yeah, or even just getting creative with your schedule and your routine. And as one of the early kind of a sacrifice that we made, but it was a conscious decision where we just always kind of work opposite schedules. One of us is kind of working during the day, and the other one's working at night. And or I was in retail, so sometimes I was the day, and sometimes I was the night, and it would just flip flop. But yeah, just being creative with someone's home with your kid. And we've also driven our children to be self-driven learners, and it's not us having to hover and be locked to them side by side, but okay, here's your assignment, go work on it, and then we'll follow up, and you show me what you've done after you've completed this task, and then I can go be doing my thing. I'm on my computer and doing some of my stuff from home. It's not the classroom setting where they put an apple on your desk, and then they sit in their chair and stare at you for 8 hours. It's that flexibility is actually great.
Unless you want to make it that awkward and that hard on your kids.
And there's some parents that probably do that, but you don't have to. It's great.
No, because there is like a whole school of thought, pun intended, that people try to make homeschooling like public school. People try to bring that, their own childhood experiences into their household, saying, oh, we have to get up at this time. We have to start at this time. We have to have this type of curriculum. We have to do subjects in this order. And we have to get through the day like this, and have to get through every subject and every single day like this. And that's not true. It really is not true. And people, but sometimes people need that for their own organizational skills, maybe, but,
Yeah.
And it's just not true always. Something as dads that I would highly encourage all those homeschool dads out there to do that I don't do is be more involved. As much work as it sounds like it is to teach your kids, imagine that being all on one person's shoulders, your wife's. Or your husband's. If a wife is listening, your husband teaches. Not leaving you out, Jimmy. And you can probably attest to this. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of time management that you have to do. So it is a big responsibility you're taking on. And to have a spouse that comes alongside you and helps is everything. Not only just supporting you in the actual duties of the homeschooling. I feel like I want to do more of that if my wife would allow me to. Maybe she doesn't want me to. That's up to her too. I can respect that. And I have a full-time job, so I can't just stop in the middle of the day, but I do help when I can. Hey, Josh, I'm going out to the store. Can you please make sure they're doing this right? They're doing this right. And I'll definitely step in and do that. I'll be the hard, this shirt I have on today says that, it says I'm the principal, the mentor, the encourager, dad homeschool. And
Nice.
that's my role, is to support my wife and to make sure my kids are doing what they should be doing. To be a backup to her when she says, you need to be doing your Latin work. And my kids are asking if they can have their computers to play some games for a bit. I'm like, did you do your Latin work? That's my job, to follow up and not be the fun dad. I have to be the school dad, the homeschool dad as well.
Yep. Yeah, it circles all the way back to that whole worldview conversation, that they're going to pick up a lens that they're going to look at the world from, and we get to be part of that. And as a dad, knowing that they'll be out on their own someday, and I only get so much time, only so many years to be part of this journey with them. Like I have chosen, I want to be involved. And I want to encourage all the other dads out there, find ways that you can be involved. If you're not leading one of the particular subjects, or something that's of interest to you, math or history or science or even literature or whatever, if you're not feeling like you're capable or able, find other ways. Maybe you become the field trip organizer for your
Hmm.
home and figuring out like, here's all the really cool things in our area. And when we go on vacation, we're going to the Florida coast. Hey, you know what? There's some cool like lighthouses or some old forts down, you know, some old Civil War forts, or I don't know, find things when you travel. Maybe that could be how you lead this up in your home. Just find some way that you can be involved and have your own input that you're giving, and that's our best encouragement.
Yeah, and find little ways that you can help, and it's just not in homeschooling. This is gonna sound, oh man, I don't even want to think about some people, how some people treat their wives, but this is my upbringing, my view. You got to take care of your wife. It's very important, and the whole happy wife, happy life thing, yes, to a sense, is very true. But it's about being a team and being a partner with your wife. Just not you have your responsibilities and I have mine. I have the lawn and you have the homey stuff. That's not how it works. Because when you
Right.
start doing the division of labor like that, um, you have to be careful because there could be some animosity between you two. Oh, if she says something about the lawn and it's my responsibility, she's commenting on my success or my failure. She's like, "Oh, the grass needs to be cut," and it's a simple comment. It's a statement that's true. The grass is long, needs to be cut, but I take it internally as she's criticizing me, and it's going to become a negative battle. Same thing with helping out, and I'm long-windedly saying this. I chose to take on the responsibility in my house of dishes every single night. And I learned this from a person at the homeschool convention, actually, Teach Me Diligently. He says, no matter how many dishes are left in the sink at night, you don't want to do it. Every single night, run the dishwasher or or wash the dishes. Because the next morning, your wife comes downstairs to start her day. That's one less thing she has to worry about doing. That's
Mm.
a clear start. She doesn't have anything holding her up in the kitchen, and I see that. Sometimes I start getting lazy, and I'll leave the bigger water bottles. I'm like, I'll do those later, so I put them to the side, or the big pot I put to the side. I just do the easy dishes, and then eventually it starts stacking up, and I can watch my wife not get frustrated, but just not as happy as she could be because now she has these things in her way, and I can totally understand it's my fault, but that's something I've taken on, and I've just like done the dishes. Or I I gotta say, I was able to convince my wife to let us get a little robot vacuum cleaner. We call it Speedy, the Roomba. And I make sure that thing's going. It has to replace parts all the time, so it's an older model. But I make sure that thing's going so that it picks the dog hair up. I try to run a vacuum around. I try to clean up the messes if I see dog messes and whatnot. And I'm not trying to boast here, but it's like it's my part I do to help her because she has the stress of doing that all day. I'm home, so I have the opportunity to help out as I can. Uh, but you can't just like say we're going to homeschool. You got it. I'm not going to be involved.
Yep.
That's not a thing. You gotta do something, whether it's part of the homeschool or pick up some other activities that your wife should be doing as a stay at home
Mm.
mom. It's just fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's those tropes that you see in TV and movies and stuff all the time, where the husband goes out of the home and he works, and then when he comes home,
Hmm.
his feet are up in the recliner, beer in his hand, and just watching the game, and not involved, doesn't do a thing. But I brought home the money, so you guys do everything else, and I'm just going to sit here when I'm home and not be involved.
Hmm.
And to an extent, I'm sure there's a pretty good handful of homes out there that that's the case.
Yep.
We've chosen not to live that way, for both of us to be involved. Like, and you mentioned a couple of your things. I'm the primary cook in our home. That's just the way it works. My wife works a lot of evenings and she hates cooking. Cooking is not my favorite, but we have to eat. I kind of enjoy it. Uh, but I'm the one that's home. And so I usually do the cooking in our house. And I do okay, I think. But every single home, you got to look at your situation. You got to look at your routine. What is it that works for you? We're not going to be able to give you a prescription of check these boxes and you will be successful homeschool
Hmm.
family. Um, Look at your own skills, your own gifting, your own routine. Your career path might lend something that's going to bring a different requirement than is different from mine. That's okay. But both of you need to be involved in whatever your family routine, whatever your family cycle is. That's what marriage and family is about, and that's
Mhm.
the picture that God painted through Scripture that we get to see, is a family comes together and you create this beautiful thing together. But it takes both of you being involved, both of you being dedicated, both of you surrendering of yourself. Um, and whenever one of you your selfishness starts to come up, like it throws things out of whack, and then it takes humility, and a desire for seeking understanding, and um, yeah, that's you just have to dive in together and figure it out.
And it's important for your kids to see you doing this. This isn't a look at
Yep.
me scenario, look at how important I am being to the family. It's your kids watch you and learn from how you act, how you treat your wife. So if you are putting your feet up on the couch and you are, in my eyes, disrespecting your wife by making her do all the things and serve you hand and foot, your kid's going to pick up on that. And your daughter is going to see that is how a woman is treated. Your son is going to see that is how you treat a woman. And to me, that's unacceptable. That's not how our life should be. That's how our household is different. Um, I I teach my kids that mom is the most important thing in our house, and we need to take care of mom. That's how I was brought up with that thought in my mind too. Mom is important. Take care of mom. And I saw my mom reciprocate that and tell me, dad's important. Just take care of dad. And it was great. It was a great family upbringing that I had, and I try to convey it to my kids as well. Um, one more thing I was thinking the whole time we were talking. Oh, the whole mentality that people have of my career is so important and I can't take a break to homeschool or I can't do this or that. Let me like we've touched on this a little bit, but you only have your kids for so long in your house. And then they're off doing whatever, and not to get all sappy and sad, but it's terrifying and it's sad because your kid's just gonna leave and you're not gonna have the same little baby you used to have, and everything changes after that. Um, but what's more important? And this even goes to just a wife and a husband without kids. Is your career more important than your wife and your family? Because when your career is over with and you retire, you still have a wife and family, hopefully, unless you really jack that up because your career. But your career only puts food on the table, and you can do whatever you want to do in life. This world is very vast with plenty of options to do whatever career you want. It doesn't have to be something that keeps you in the office 10 hours a day, or on your phone off away from your family. So it's very important to put your priorities straight when you're making these kind of decisions. Um, your kids' education is very important, and forming them into the correct woman or man in the future is our responsibility as parents. Whether you wanted to be a parent or not, you are there, and it's your responsibility. So that's kind of a heavy weight to think about, but just don't be selfish about it. Like
And it's not too late to make adjustments.
right, exactly.
It's easy if your kids are already teenagers and you're like, but yeah, you're right. I should have been more involved when they were young. And yeah, I've just let so much time go by, and this is our routine. This is what we've already set up. Like, no, you still have whatever time you've got with them in your home. You still got that time to make some adjustments, make some changes. Could be small, could be minor, but and we don't do it perfectly. We've got areas to grow and to learn. We try to challenge ourselves. We try to take advice from other people. But that's my advice is, if you find that that's your hurdle, like, well, everything is just so big and important. I don't have time to be involved. Um, Try to find at least a small way. Start there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not too late. Start now.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me, you can homeschool your kid at any stage of their journey. Like
Yep.
you can pull them out of elementary, middle, high school, whatever you want to do. You can. It's your kid to teach them how you want to teach them.
Yep.
You're not required to do that in any state that I know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but check your local state requirements. Um, it's your kid, your freedoms to do that and educate them how you want to. I
Yep.
think I think we're at time today, actually. I have some
I
actual
think so.
real life meetings to
We're
get to.
it's catching up.
It's catching up, yeah. But this has been a good topic today. Good talk, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.
Peace.